All right, part 3. Today we're going to talk about balance. We mentioned this before when we went over the principles of design, but now we're going to look a little bit more into it. All right, what is balance? It is the visual distribution of weight through color, texture, and space. Ultimately, it just helps make an image feel stable. It's one of those elements or principles that helps the overall composition of your art piece. The first type we have, which you should all know and be familiar with, is symmetrical balance. That is having a mirror image on the opposite side of the vertical axis. So you can see in the painting there, the trees there, if you had an axis line down the center of that painting, both sides look the same. Opposite of symmetrical would be asymmetrical, and that's created by having different objects on either side of the vertical axis. You can see in this painting the great wave, that the wave on the left is much bigger, creating asymmetrical balance. Now, just because it is asymmetrical balance does not mean that it's wrong. It's just the balance that is used in a composition. It still can be appealing and a wonderful composition using asymmetrical balance like in that painting. The next one is radial balance. These are when all objects radiate from a center point, usually having a very strong focal point, like you can see in this example here. All the shapes, everything, color, everything radiates from the center point. And then next we have repeating balance. It's very similar to pattern. There's no focal point, but it's just repeating over and over, but it creates balance as well. Now, you can have influencers in balance, kind of like social media influencers. You've heard the name. Balance can be influenced by textures, color and value, orientation, size and quantity, position and isolation, and shapes. So let's learn a little bit more about that. Let's go to color and value. So bright color and dark value can add weight to an object. So you're going to hear the term weight a lot, and that means kind of like the visual weight. Something is really heavy, it's seen, it's noticeable. So color and value can add to the balance. So you might have light colors on one side and heavy colors on the other side, creating asymmetrical balance. Then you have textures. Textures also can add weight to an object, creating balance. So you might have some arrows that are very plain and simple on one side, and then on the other side you might have one with all of these wonderful textures, and they're balancing each other out. Size and quantity. So larger objects feel heavier, like you can see in this arrow, and multiple objects can balance that out. So if you have one thick arrow, you can have small tiny arrows that kind of balance it. Now if we had one small tiny arrow, then you would see kind of an unbalanced composition. Next we have orientation. This is a diagonal object will usually have more visual weight than horizontal or vertical. So we learned about horizontal when we talked about shape in Art 1 and 2 and how they make you feel things a certain way or make the piece feel a certain way. Diagonal works that way when creating balance. If you have something that is horizontal or vertical and you want to add some balance, add something diagonally. And then we have position and isolation. So an isolated object will appear heavier. The further out from the center, the heavier an object will feel. So it's kind of like you're looking at a piece and then up in the sky, there's one thing all by itself. Well, the eye is drawn to that. It feels heavy. So by isolating one object or item in the piece, you're creating balance. And then shape. Shape is a more complex shape will appear heavier, as you can see there. This is a lot of information. I understand, not expecting you to know exactly what we're talking about, but we're going to explore it a little bit more this week. Balance, overall, you just need to know that balance is important in composition. So achieving that balance, whether it's symmetrical, asymmetrical, or radial, or repeating, we need to learn to use it well.